So you want to make an impact on your organization. Of course you do. That should be the goal of all of us. And so many learning professionals find themselves toiling away, working day after day, and all those efforts don't really seem to pay off. Well, there's a way to fix that. And the answer is by aligning your learning strategy with the goals of your organization. And so today, I'm going to talk you through how to do just that. If you're new to the channel, my name is Matt Jertson. I'm the founder and chief learning officer of Better Everyday Studios, an instructional design company devoted to helping learning teams have more impact on their organizations. Before I did this, I was an instructor pilot in the Air Force, and then I led training and development at SpaceX. Let's get started. In my experience, one of the most common reasons why learning strategies fail is because they're not really aligned to the business needs. They're either aligned to their own goals, like, learning for learning's sake, which is never really going to go anywhere. They don't really have an objective where they're just kind of, order takers and the business is sending them jobs, they're doing those jobs, but they're not really driving towards anything. And so if you really want to make sure that you're going to have an impact, then aligning with the business strategy is essential. To start off, let's define a learning strategy because it can be kind of a big term. And there's probably no specific right answer, but I simply think of it as your plan for delivering learning to the organization. What kind of courses are you going to create? What form will they come in? What technology are you going to be using? All of those things wrapped together become your learning strategy. And this should very much be a living document, right? Depending on where you work, you might be able to set a strategy for the next 12 months, or maybe it's just the next 6 months. I've certainly been in places where it was hard to set a plan for even a quarter. But either way, like they say, failing to plan is planning to fail. And so if you don't have some kind of strategy for how you are going to deliver learning, then you're certainly not going to be that effective. And most importantly, that learning strategy really needs to do more than just deliver learning. It needs to be a strategy of how you are going to drive impact for the organization, because that's the whole point. If you want to get more resources, if you want to be taken more seriously, if you want to, as they say, get a seat at the table, then you need to be impacting the business in real ways that they can measure. So now the question is, how do you make sure your learning strategy is aligned with the business? There's two main things I think you need to do. The first thing you need to do is to connect with someone in the business who you can try to help meet their goals. Because the challenge that learning often has is it's kind of relegated off to the side. We're in some side corner of HR and we don't necessarily know what's going on out in the business. And as a result, we have a hard time helping the business. And since we're a support team, you need to have that direct connection with an actual leader out in the business if you want to be able to solve business problems. In an ideal setting, this is going to be somebody at the executive level. Say it's the VP of production and trying to figure out how can you help production solve production problems. But of course, one of the reasons why we are in the place that we're in is because we probably don't have connections to the executive team. So in that case, what I would recommend is look at your own supporting chain or your own reporting structure and find the first person in your reporting structure that isn't in learning, right? So if you're an instructional designer, maybe you report to a head of learning, and the head of learning maybe reports to the VP of HR, something like that. Someone in your chain who is outside of learning, so they're closer to the business than just learning is, but they're in your reporting structure. So basically, by definition, your success is going to mean their success. And so they're more likely to want to connect with you. And what you want to do is ask them, what are the broader challenges that they're facing? Not with learning specifically, but what are the bigger picture things that they're trying to solve? And then you can see how can you take learning and apply it to solving that problem. Another excellent way that you can try to connect with somebody out in the business is to just think through, where is there a leader in the business who does believe in learning. Maybe you're at a company maybe they're a startup, maybe they're a tech company, maybe a lot of people don't really buy into the whole idea of how effective learning can be inside of an organization. But very likely there's going to be someone out in the business that, came from a big company, came from the military, came from somewhere where they were instilled with the understanding of what learning can do and what training can do to solve real problems. You want to connect with one of those people. And at this point, you can't get an executive to support you. You can't get your boss to support you. So whoever is really looking for your help, and that's who you want to try to connect with. Somebody who is excited about you and is as relevant in the business as possible so that you can try to, by solving their problems, have as big of an impact as possible. One note that I will bring up here is something to avoid is to go out and be strictly trying to serve the needs of kind of the people on the ground. Say it's the frontline technicians or that kind of thing. And that's not because we don't want to solve those problems. We really do. But what I have found, and maybe you've seen differently, but what I've found in organizations that I've worked at is at some level in the reporting structure, there's always a disconnect between what people on the ground level say they need and what leadership thinks they need. Maybe that discrepancy is at the director level, maybe it's at the VP level, it depends. But the tricky part is you need to balance serving the needs of the higher levels with the needs of the lower levels. Because in my career, some of the biggest mistakes I've made is kind of dying on the hill of supporting the little person in the organization or the people who are out front and saying, we need to support them. Because honestly, if the executives don't care about it or understand it, they're not going to understand the impact, and you're not going to get any credit for any problems that you do solve. So if you're just getting started, I recommend you start by trying to solve kind of the highest level problems that you can, and then build those relationships so that you can solve those other problems that you find. Once you connect with a stakeholder who you can really, solve a problem for, that's kind of the first step in making sure your strategy aligns with business goals, because you now have a true business goal that you're aiming to try to solve. But how do you make sure that strategy stays on target? This is really key because I think very often there's a lot of drift, and that's what causes our strategies to go off track, because maybe it started really well focused and then at some point it just kind of went off track and we never really got to the deliverable that we were trying to get to, and thus we never really had the impact that we thought we were going to have. So the key thing to make sure you avoid this kind of drifting is as early as possible, once you figure out the problem that you're going to solve and how you're going to solve it, really clearly outline both to yourself, your team, and to the stakeholder what the plan is. What are you going to deliver? What's the timeline it's going to be on? Don't just tell people that. Get agreement on it. You want kind of a group, consensus is the wrong word, but at least agreement that, okay, we understand the plan. We understand what the strategy is that we're going towards. And that way you have that agreement so that inevitably in the future, when people come to you and try to change that plan, it's not that you say no. You don't just say, no, we have an agreement. What you want to do instead is point them back to the plan and say, okay, this is what we agreed to, and it's okay to change. I'm more than happy to change based on what you want to do. But I want to tell you that when we make this change, it's going to have these implications. It's going to push this deliverable off. We're not going to be able to meet this objective. The timeline is going to change, whatever it is. So if you get that agreement early, what that allows you to do is, rather than acting really defensively and saying no to any changes that come in, you can simply say, okay, that sounds great. I love this idea for a change. Here are what the implications to that change can be. And then the stakeholder can decide, whether or not that seems like it's a good trade for them and whether they want to do that. So when it comes to aligning a learning strategy with the business strategy, this is really how I think about it. You have to start off with finding somebody out in the business who you can align your strategy to serve. Ideally, it's somebody at the executive level, but if it's going to be lower, that's fine. And then making sure you stick to that strategy and have a plan for avoiding the continuous drift that keeps you from getting to any objective. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you liked the discussion, make sure to hit like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. As a reminder, if your team is struggling keeping up with the training development demands of your organization, we want to help. Better Everyday Studios is a full service instructional design team that can help you with everything from ideation to actual content creation and delivery. Please reach out to us using the link in the episode notes below. Have a great day.